Aileen Wuornos remains cemented in the American cultural imaginary as a violent anomaly, one of the nation's most notorious female serial killers. Her identity was sanitized and mythologized by Hollywood. Charlize Theron's Oscar-winning portrayal in the film Monster gave audiences a cinematic tragedy they could comfortably digest. But looking past the Hollywood treatment raises a disturbing question. When a woman is put on trial, what is she actually being judged for? Is the jury only evaluating the facts of a crime, or is she being measured against a hidden metric? A high-profile trial of a woman is rarely an objective look at her actions. It is an interrogation of her entire identity. Modern journalists act as cultural translators, interpreting raw events through the values of their own society. Just as a linguist modifies a sentence to make sense in a new language, the media alters chaotic real-world events so they align with existing worldviews. This process filters complex human realities down into simplistic, recognizable tropes that audiences already understand. When a subject's lived reality is entirely foreign to that filter, the translation shatters. Their identity becomes corrupted or even weaponized by the press. The media forces women to speak a specific cultural language. Those who cannot speak it face public destruction. In the United States, the specific language the media expects from female subjects is a performative framework known as bourgeois white femininity. To pass this test, a woman must project middle to upper class stability. She needs to be demure, heteronormative, and entirely pure. This script is mandatory if a female victim wants to be believed. To receive any empathy from the press, a woman must translate herself into the perfect victim. Failing to perform even one part of this rigid framework strips a woman of the media's protection and renders her immediately suspect. Aileen Wuornos' early life was the absolute antithesis of bourgeois white femininity. Her mother abandoned her when she was 4. She was left with an alcoholic grandfather who severely abused her, and by age 11, she was engaging in survival sex work just to get food and cigarettes. At 14, she became pregnant after being raped by a friend of her grandfather. By 15, she was thrown out to live in the woods. As an adult, psychiatrists documented her severe psychological damage, noting intense trauma responses, high psychopathy scores, and a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. Because of her profound marginalization, her reality was completely untranslatable into the perfect victim narrative the media requires. Between late 1989 and late 1990, Wuornos shot and killed 7 of her male clients along Florida highways. When arrested, her initial legal defense was that the men had raped or attempted to rape her, and that she committed the homicides in self-defense. The legal system aggressively blocked that narrative. The judge refused to let the jury see institutional records, proving her first victim had previously served years in a maximum security facility for attempted rape. The press faced a massive translation failure. Because Wuornos was an unhoused sex worker and a queer woman, reporters simply could not process her as a victim of male violence. They stripped away her humanity, her trauma, and the brutal circumstances of her survival, translating her exclusively into a one-dimensional monster. Because she failed to perform proper femininity, the media and the courts weaponized her identity against her. Wuornos was convicted, sentenced to death 6 times, and spent over a decade on Florida's death row. In her final interviews with documentarian Nick Broomfield, she appeared intensely paranoid, a woman entirely consumed by rage against the system. She was executed by lethal injection in 2002. Her final on-camera words expressed a bitter hatred for a society she felt had completely railroaded her. Her execution was the final, brutal punctuation mark on a life that society refused to translate with any empathy. But this flawed translation framework did not die with Wuornos. It is a systemic feature of modern journalism. Years later, Amanda Knox was subjected to the exact same performative expectations during her murder trial. The press judged her heavily for failing to act like a properly demure, grieving victim. This framework even extends to the highest levels of power. Throughout her career, Hillary Clinton was scrutinized not just for her policies, but for her unapologetic ambition, a direct violation of the demure, domestic role the performative script requires. Whenever a woman deviates from the cultural script, whether through poverty, sexuality, or a reach for high-level power. The media's translation inherently turns hostile. The news media acts as an active filter, enforcing an impossible cultural script that many women simply cannot follow. Until we recognize the framework of bourgeois white femininity, women will continue to be judged for the parts they fail to play.